live streams to do with the ostriches seem to be being mass reported. The algorithm gets jammed, and it stops my broadcast. So,
Katie,
we don't know. That's my hypothesis. I have no evidence. There's plausible deniability. But if you are able to screen record this so that we can save what is going on here, if I am being censored, which it appears I am.
Okay, so this is the latest kind of, and this is
Jim Kerr.
We don't know.
We'll talk.
We don't know what's going on. We just have hypotheses about what the situation is. But for some reason, Kathy does a whole bunch of stuff on various issues. But on what happens is that all the footage gets into this loop and you can't get into it, and it basically gets removed from the Twitter, the whole Twitter thing, or the X thing. So anyway, I guess we'll just do a bit of an introduction again. Is that what we're going to do?
I guess we're restarting the whole thing.
Are we restarting?
Somewhat, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we can...
Okay, we'll do an abridged version. So,
I've got it recorded from my angle.
okay, so just so people know what we're doing, this is a great method, which if you can get a live stream or can get it recorded through some mechanism, you can combat self-censorship and cancellation. This is kind of going on in the universities, and that's why I became interested in the Spectrum Street Epistemology method, is because if you try to book a talk on a controversial issue, such as trans activism, the Israel-Palestine conflict, indigenization, and such things, the universities will cancel those talks because they say that they're not obligated to rent space.
There you go.
And so renting space becomes the issue. And so with Spectrum camera, you lay your mats out and you just frame them. So no one has to try to combat our ability to have that property, and we have to apply. They backed off and they didn't do anything. So that seemed to be a bit of a bluff that they were worried about that. So today, I'm mainly interested in this because of its potential for opening up contentious discussions and enabling people to think about the reasons for why they believe the things that they do. That's the reason for this method. And today, we're talking about an issue to do with the ostrich farms. The ostrich farm in British Columbia, where they're going to be calling an organization, the CFIA, which is the Canadian Food and Inspection Agency, has issued an order for the ostriches to be pulled. We are just getting Hal and I, and Hal is going to come over here. We can just Hal is here with us because Hal was at the ostrich farm in British Columbia, and he has some knowledge of the situation, and he was just giving us some background on what it's all about.
First off, in no way do I pretend to represent universal ostrich farms. I'm here for humanity, for democracy, for science, for freedom. Yes. And that's that. I have some knowledge I will gladly try to imbue. But yes, I went as a volunteer because I felt strongly compelled that this issue ties together so many things, like the fact that science has now become a religion which we must not question. Oh, that's very disturbing, and that these policies come from unelected, unaccountable, extra-national bodies.
But what do you mean by science has become a religion?
Well, if you can't question it, it's not science. The science is a religion.
The science.
the science, those who dare question are heretics, which are cast out, ostracized, and that's not science.
Okay, so that's what you're talking about, is that there's certain things which are put forward as the science, which to say the science is, of course, seems to me to be contrary to science, because you never have the science. You have some data that is interpreted, and the whole purpose of science is that it's a method where you can disprove, hypotheses. And so if you say that there's this science, it becomes kind of a, I think they call in Marxist terms, reification. You have reification, which is making these things appear as if they're real when it's just a tentative kind of position which should be questioned.
The consensus.
The consensus.
Yeah, no, science, well, there's some things, as I said in the previous stream, which got hacked there. But we need to get back to the concept that there are some things that are objective facts or truth, like
Yes.
mammals cannot change sex, men cannot get pregnant,
Okay.
2 + 2 = 4, and again, I'll do the demonstration. Gravity sucks.
All right. So the facts. So this is good because my own view on Spectrum Street Epistemology and trying to figure things out is it's good to have a grounding in facts.
Yes, and be as open and transparent with those as possible.
Exactly. So this does not mean that they are facts, because facts will have to be established and examined through some kind of process whereby universal kind of acceptance is the goal. So I can't have my facts which are different from your facts.
Oh, it's about your feelings. Facts don't matter.
Yeah, well, that's a different argument. So there's arguments about feelings are more important than facts, and we can argue about, but then there is, you have your facts and I have my facts.
Well, in most cases, there are objective facts. And the he said, she said thing, there's at least three sides. There's what I said, what you said, then there's the truth as viewed from above, what actually happens.
Exactly. And so with respect to the ostriches, what is the most important fact?
There are 398 healthy birds which have survived whatever bacterial and or viral threats came upon them, and they are, in fact, antibodies have been shown in eggs, now egg yolks dating back several years, I hear. So I'm skeptical that even they were killed by H5N1. It could have easily been the Pseudomonas bacteria which killed ostriches back in 2020. So why will the CFIA fine anybody who tests these birds $200,000 and or 6 months in jail? What is that?
Good question. So a fact is that we have 398 birds that are currently alive.
As I know it, yes. I haven't myself counted them. There's too many to count. You have to go to the Supreme Court.
Okay. But there are dozens of birds that are currently alive.
Yeah.
How many birds died?
I believe it was 49. The herd was at something like 450, and it dropped to 400, as I know it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So approximately 49 birds died, and there are approximately 400 birds that are still alive.
Yeah.
You stated that those birds are healthy. Is that in dispute?
I don't think anyone disputes that.
Okay, so we don't have any evidence to suggest that they're not healthy.
No, though there have been 2 ostriches were executed, right, which are very dead now. Yeah.
Okay, but that was that they were healthy. No one was saying that they were unhealthy when they were executed. They were just executed for I don't know, or taken out. Like they were killed for no reason.
Well, I don't know. Nobody I know. Well, I shouldn't say that, but I don't know. We don't know who did it. It was all, in both cases, it was in sort of 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning situation.
Oh, okay.
I believe one shot came from overhead the night that drones were in the area. And
Okay.
the police haven't gone into it. There's no conclusive investigation or anything like that. So.
And so why does the government want to kill approximately 400 healthy birds. If it is true that they are healthy, and that doesn't seem to be in dispute.
Because of their stamp out policy.
Okay. And what is their stamp out policy?
Kill all birds that are kill all living birds in a region or a facility where H5N1 is suspected to have caused deaths.
Okay, and that's what you said, facility, so that's some kind of private or like some kind of human endeavor which has kind of corralled these birds into some kind of location.
Mostly farms, but I'm pretty sure that it could also affect backyard farmers. You know, like you got a dozen chickens. I think it could also be applied there. And I know that in BC they've moved to registering anywhere there is poultry, and you need to have a property identification number now to get chicken feed.
Okay.
Like that, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so they have this policy. If some birds did die of this avian flu, then all the remaining birds that are in that flock must be killed.
Yes, that is the stamp out policy.
And do you know why they have that policy?
As far as I know, because the World Organization for Animal Health says so.
Okay, so this is an international body which has stipulated that this should happen in these cases, but it's not very clear why they think that's the case.
Yeah, they're just following the diktat.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of a big issue. So what we really need in terms of a proper street epistemology kind of method is to get someone who agrees with that diktat and has some kind of reasons for why they think it should happen.
Yeah, I believe that Miss Cat can play some kind of a devil's advocate.
Okay. So so we got a bit of an understanding of the issue here. Let's move to the to whatever mat you think that you should be on with respect.
Okay.
Hey there. We're doing a kind of a thought experiment on a claim about the ostriches.
Yeah.
Whether the ostriches should be killed.
Should be what? Killed.
Should be killed.
Oh, no.
So there's a farm in British Columbia where because there was a couple birds that died of, some birds died of bird flu, and the other.
We don't know what they died
All
of.
of them are sick.
Oh, sorry,
right?
we don't know what they died of, but they
Not
died.
conclusive, yeah.
Not conclusive.
They won't allow us to question.
Okay, so Hal, give us your reasons for why you strongly agree with the claim that the ostriches should be killed.
Strongly disagree.
Yeah, you strongly disagree.
Because the CFIA will not allow any questioning of their determination, and also it's wrong to. Why would they kill the birds that survived that now have immunity? And it's been shown that they have antibodies to H5N1.
Is that a fact?
As far as I know, from what I've been told.
Okay, so it's kind of an open question. That's the question. Do the remaining birds have antibodies to H1N1?
H5N1.
Oh, sorry, H5N1. H5N1. And if they did have antibodies, so if that were established as a fact, that would mean that the bird should not be killed?
Well, it means that they were exposed to it and they developed a resistance to it, and so they're now resistant. So this is something else the government doesn't like to acknowledge, is that living creatures have immune systems. Natural immunity is real, and it's more powerful than anything they can concoct themselves.
Okay. And so, in terms of your movement, so you're on the strongly disagree, and let me see if I can get your argument put forward, is that this stamp out order, the order to cull all these birds, is due to a dictate from an international organization which is not transparent or accountable and will not explain what its position is on this situation with the antibodies. It hasn't really answered why animals that have antibodies to the H5N1 should be killed.
Yeah, that's right. It's a bizarre policy whereby apparently even suspicion of H5N1 in the flock can trigger the policy.
Okay.
It is incredibly disruptive to the food supply, and it's incredibly, because farms are paid some kind of value for every animal destroyed, but that's just a waste of money. If, you know, they're probably killing healthy birds that could be just hungry people. There's a chicken in every pot, right? So it's a crime against nature and humanity and science and democracy.
Okay. And so in terms of, and so there's the dictate, but also because of the lack of sort of rationale and evidence-based kinds of arguments, it's opening up a situation whereby you could have tons of other animals that could be killed arbitrarily,
including your pets.
Including our pets.
The University of Maryland is trying to spread this fear. There's a link I have from them. Like, bird flu now killing 90% of cats. Has anyone seen any like mounds of dead cats in the streets? No.
Who's spreading that?
University of Maryland.
Okay. Well, that's gonna. So this is a problem. It's a problem if we're. I think that you would agree, Hal, that it's a problem if we're proceeding on policies whereby we don't really have a very good grasp of the evidence upon which those decisions are based.
Yes, and that the government will not allow any questioning. Oh, I'd like to point out this thing I got from my favorite thrift store people on Vancouver Island, British Columbia. It is the shield of the University of Alberta.
Okay.
Quickum Vera. So their motto is "Whatsoever is true." Now our universities need to open up to objective truth and academic freedoms.
So you would agree with the statement, which I assume that's the principle there. We should accept whatever is true.
Yes, and we should be open to facts which don't support our positions or opinions.
Yes, so it's kind of the quest to determine what is true at the universities. That's what universities are supposed to be about. But as we have discovered from numerous universities, including Mount Royal University, Thompson Rivers University, University of Regina, University of Lethbridge, and so on.
University of Victoria.
University of Victoria was another one.
Can I mention a couple of disturbing ones? McGill is extremely disturbing in my view, the stuff they're putting out.
Oh yeah? Why is McGill disturbing?
They've received a large injection of pharma money. Now appear to be operating as promoters of the pharmaco-military industrial complex agenda.
Yeah, these are all questions. And what we would need to do if we're going to be investigating that claim is we would have to establish the floor of facts or the grounding in facts. And we just don't have time to do that right now. We're just trying to establish the facts with respect to the ostrich situation. So with respect to the ostriches and your strongly disagree position, which is based upon sort of dictates which don't seem to have any evidence to support them, and no ability to question whatever these dictates are.
No flexibility. No flexibility. It's just, we're forbidden to question the policy or the science.
Yeah. Okay.
At risk of fines and jail time.
Okay. And that's another thing, is when you start to get these penalties, that really makes you wonder about things, because penalties are sort of a silencing kind of mechanism, like especially about speech. So if you start to criminalize various forms of speech, it makes things difficult. But in terms of your position, you're quite certain about this matter?
Oh yes.
Okay. What would make you less certain about your position?
If there was solid, transparent, and science which was allowed to be fully inspected by independent researchers, that these ostriches somehow did present a threat, then I would move. But that they will not allow any independent testing alone. Okay, what do you guys might do?
So why do you think they won't allow any independent testing?
Because they think they're God, and that we must unquestionably obey them, whatever it is, even if it means shooting your children to save grandma. Right?
I wonder what other possibilities, or maybe it's to try to prevent kind of confusion in the, like if you open up the thing where dictates of the government can just be opposed because you want you think you should have your own independent thing going on, then it sort of challenges the legitimacy of the government's kind of authority.
Well, if they're saying that we cannot question their science, the science, then they are wrong. They are out of step with reality and science and democracy. And yeah, this is about totalitarianism, right? But the government.
And so, what do you mean by totalitarianism?
Where those who do not obey are jailed. You know, that they're working to criminalize free speech.
Okay.
Bill C-63 and Bill 36 in BC eliminates doctors' ability to function independently. They must follow government dictates. They can no longer exercise their Hippocratic oath or follow the Hippocratic oath. They cannot practice their science. They just must follow government mandates and dictates, or they face delicensure and jail time, fines, that kind of stuff.
So you see criminalization of speech, for example, as being one of the indications of totalitarianism.
Absolutely. Criminalization of true speech, that's why I'm saying 2 + 2 = 4, gravity, sex. Mammals cannot change sex.
Yeah.
Men cannot get pregnant.
Okay.
Teaching other people's children that in kindergarten is very, very wrong. We stop teaching about the virgin birth of Jesus Christ. You get your religion out of our schools and government right now.
Okay. So, in terms of your changing your position, so if we were able to have an open discussion about this, whereby evidence emerged that although those birds have these antibodies and so on, and that does not mean they still could spread H5N1 even though they have those antibodies. It doesn't make that kind of evidence is sort of what you're talking about in terms of your movement?
I'm more concerned about the why. Well, I'm not concerned at all about it. In fact, we were all sandblasted with ostrich guano during a strong wind event. Like I was literally, getting it out of my eyes. Whatever stuff is blowing off the paddock. No one got sick. Now, some people are trying to claim that the birds. I do not know all the ins and outs of what has been done to these birds. But apparently they might have been injected with like a sort of a neutralized COVID viruses and stuff like that. Maybe. Well, okay, to animal research. Some people are trying to claim that they are becoming a bioweapon, right? And well, they were invited down here to speak their piece, but they're not here. I wish they were.
Okay, so but if it were established that they had a whole bunch of things that they'd been injected with that made them a hazard to society.
Well, apparently this person is a professor at a university in Alberta. So yeah, like
if he's correct.
From what I've heard, yeah. So
He's correct.
I'd love to hear his opinions.
Okay,
or
so
his fact.
so Kathy, what do you think about you coming
Also,
and
that woman over there is a fan of yours. She was quite excited to see you. Yeah.
You know what? I'm a fan of hers.
Yeah.
And hers.
Is that Francis? What is it? Yes.
so we got to get this.
What we can do.
We're gonna move the
camera so I can see it. So if you can do it in the shade. Sure, yeah.
Okay, so Al, why don't you just come over here and we'll listen to Kathy here on the strong views.
Okay, how about this? I'll move my mat. Should I?
Yeah.
Let's just tighten it up a bit.
Yeah. We'll have strongly agree and agree. Yep, just put it on top of agree.
Okay.
This is kind of the binary division.
Okay, so they can see me. Let me just move it this way.
Can they see the mats?
The live behind the live.
Right. So strongly agree, strongly disagree. I don't know if they can see the mats, but move it up a And you got a mic? You got a mic?
You're gonna have to be her mic.
Should I
I
right,
don't know where the other mic is going.
right here. Right here.
Oh, okay.
Is
Yeah,
it-
so I've got a mic which I'm using, so that's no problem.
Excellent.
Okay, so we're here now, just so people know what we're doing, is that Kathy is kind of neutral. You're a bit neutral in your own
Yeah.
mind. And same with me, I have no idea about this. Like, Kel tells us things, but he could be some kind of tinfoil hat kind of guy who doesn't. He's just like conspiracy theories and stuff. So we'd
Right.
have to go and evaluate these things. But Kathy is neutral, but she's read up a little bit on. We wanted to get the University of Calgary professor,
If possible.
if possible.
But he's
His University of Calgary professor, evidently, who was on X, talking about how the birds should be culled because of they've been injected with a whole bunch of substances which makes them a hazard to surrounding people and animals, I guess. Anyway, so Kathy is going to try to steelman the strongly agree argument about the birds.
right. And okay, so I think that this whole situation is highly unfortunate. I am like rooting for the birds in a way because I have cockatiels, I love birds, there's an emotional reaction. However, sometimes we need to make really brutal decisions for the greater good. If there's a risk of illness, and I think the reason why there's a stamp out policy with the avian flu is because if it transfers to humans, and if it mutates, if it's able to be incubated in animals and mutates and then crosses over to humans, then we're going to be in a situation of like a real pandemic, of death and destruction of humans. So that is why I think that there's such a strong policy, even if it's overkill. A lot of these animals are in crowded conditions, they're always in contact with each other, and so even if they look healthy, they can be incubators for this illness. And it can be developing and changing and that sort of thing.
So would you say, I'm not sure if you heard about this principle, it's called the precautionary principle. So it's a principle that's often used in kind of environmental kinds of discussions. So you're not exactly sure what the effect is going to be, but it's possible that the effect should be catastrophic in some way, and therefore to just guard against that possibility of catastrophic circumstances, you take some kind of measure which is not 100% verifiable, but it would be better to be on the safe side.
Right. So what is that called again?
Precautionary principle.
Precautionary principle. So, for example, lots of people who live on acreages in the forest, they will cut all of the trees around their home and give a wide berth so that they would have their home hopefully protected from a forest fire. So things like that. But in the case of these birds, there's a word that there's a possibility that there's corruption on the government side and that they're using the H5N1 diagnosis as a way to cover their tracks for the fact that these birds are now incubating something else. So these birds have been involved in multiple medical experiments, trying to get antibodies, which aren't the concern, but incredibly lucrative. So there was a Japanese scientist injecting them, and around the same time, mysteriously, 10 birds died, which was the same amount that they allowed to be injected by this scientist, with I think some sort of like pseudo-viruses, deactivated viruses or something, which this is some mad science. We don't know, are the viruses actually are they going to turn these birds into biohazards and spread something even worse, kind of like a gain of function sort of situation. There were...
So in terms of facts, do we know, are these facts?
Yeah, these have been verified.
Verified facts that these animals have been injected with various.
Yeah, and there's court
things.
documents and that sort of thing as well.
Okay. And so, Hal, this kind of idea that we need to cull these birds because they've been injected with all these substances and therefore could be a hazard. Is that something you've heard, or is this, what's your response to that?
It's something I've heard, and if that is the case, full transparency needs to be provided, and then we adjust what this is about. It's not about H5N1. It's about something else. So just their basis, the call for on H5N1 doesn't make sense. And certainly I would change my position from
So if you heard that, if this were true, that they have been injected with all these, and this is one of the reasons why they need to be culled, you would become less certain about saying that they shouldn't be culled.
Well, then it's not a CFIA issue about H5N1.
Okay.
Right? So there may well be other issues, and I haven't gotten to the bottom of that. I don't know if anyone has.
Okay.
But even so, let's say they were exposed to COVID in an experiment.
Okay.
Hold on. Here you go. That's what it's about.
And I'm disagreeing.
We're investigating this claim about whether the ostriches should be culled.
Yeah, we're just doing a critical thinking.
And you're welcome to join us if you have an opinion about it.
I'm Australian. I don't have an opinion.
Excellent.
I didn't even
Neutral.
know we had that many ostriches in Canada.
This is from BC, actually.
There's ostriches in Canada. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Also, I find it interesting that a lot of people are saying that this is a grift, and that the reason why they don't want the ostriches culled is not because they actually love and care about the birds, but because it's incredibly lucrative if they do find antibodies. For example, one of the multiple tests of injecting these birds to get antibodies involved antibodies in an egg that scientists in the USA were somehow using to try and suppress some sort of hormonal imbalance in regards to, they'd spray it on their head for alopecia. This doesn't make a whole lot of, I don't know the science behind this. And so if they were able to come up with some sort of cure that you could spray from these ostriches by injecting them with pseudoviruses or whatever is going on, that would be a lot of money. So there's that motivation to keep the birds. They previously were harvesting the birds.
I'm just going to say to you, if you worry about ostriches, look up the Great Emu War in Australia.
Thanks. Similar thing.
We lost. Look it up. It's hilarious.
Thanks. Do you want a sticker?
I'm good, thank you.
Oh, here. You want a sticker?
I'm good, thank you.
That's what it's about. Here's a sticker.
There's been some injections, like this has been established, of things. As Hal was saying, then it's no longer the CFIA that is about this. Like, that's not a CFIA issue. This is a communicable disease.
Well, it should also be a CFIA issue if these birds are able to, if they're part of medical experiments and they then pose any sort of danger. We need to figure out what I was told by someone in the States.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
That the birds should be
Have a sticker.
Thank you so much.
20 feet down, like the mad cow disease cows.
Oh, okay.
And that they should have their meat tested
Okay.
to figure out. And that I guess one of the problems is that with these injections that they're doing with the birds is that they're creating some sort of proteins in the process of creating these antibodies.
Okay.
There's these proteins that can collect on the outside of the cells and can lead to type 2 diabetes as well as things like Alzheimer's disease in the brain and things like so it can cause
Amyloid proteins.
amyloid proteins.
Okay.
Thank you.
Amyloid. So, Hal, is that a fact that there's these amyloid proteins that have been established?
We know that the mandated medical experiment mRNAs have induced that in humans.
But what about the birds here?
That I don't know.
So we don't really, like
Like-
Kathy, you're saying that that's established? This amyloid protein? So we don't know.
No, I'm saying that this was the argument that I heard from someone else.
That it's possible that amyloid proteins have been created in these birds, and that would require the birds to be buried 20 feet down in the
Well, if they're able to, let's say, shed to humans, and then humans begin creating these amyloid proteins, and then get Alzheimer's and other issues and health problems and die. That is something to consider.
Okay. And in terms of considering this, Hal,
Yes.
so if it were true that there were these amyloid proteins that were being created in these birds, would that make you think that they should be killed?
Absolutely. Like, if it can be shown, as some suggest, that these ostriches are now biohazard weapons against humanity, then yeah, we got to act.
Okay.
But like, let's then address that rather than
And they're not really doing that.
the bird flu bogeyman is what they're on here.
And also to the wild birds. Like, what about the wild birds?
Right? Kill them all. Stamp them out. Hey, what's the guy's name? Mark Carney.
Right. So I think one of the reasons why maybe there's not complete transparency on the side of the government if they are using H1N1, H5N1 as an excuse to cull the birds when there could be other reasons for why they'd want to do so is because they don't want to necessarily induce a panic.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like, you would also have to look into reasons why you would release information and what's in the public good.
Okay.
No.
Sorry, what's that?
Yes.
I'm not going to pick the flowers. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I don't know if if we've had enough discussion, because I got to go feed my parking meter.
Yeah, do you think that was enough?
I don't know. What do you
That
guys
was a
think?
good session.
You guys can keep on going while I go feed my
Yeah, yeah.
parking meter if you want.
Hey,
Okay.
can I use my mic?
So I'll be back in around 5 minutes. I'll be back in
Okay.
around 5 minutes.
So here I am with Vancouver Island TV in downtown
You're going to
Calgary.
perform? We're starting a band. We're starting a band right now.
Yeah, I'm Hal
Here, you
here
already
with Vancouver
have a
Island
microphone. This is my microphone now.
Okay.
Yeah. We starting a band?
So what's the issue? Yeah, you're the doo-wop girl. Doo-wop, doo-wop.
Yeah, exactly. Are you filming me? You need to ask permission before you film me.
I got your consent.
That's not very polite. It's not very polite for you to film me.
I got your explicit verbal consent.
I don't consent. I retract my consent now.
Okay. Well, what about your thing?
You're not
Hey,
allowed
wait.
to use any of this
You gotta come
footage.
this way a little bit.
Oh.
Okay. How about we stand on the...
Yeah, we can
whatever.
stand on the
Well, let's
opposite-
change positions.
Yeah, why don't you
How
try...
about I'll,
okay,
I'll steel man. Let's practice steel man.
Okay.
I'm Hal here with Vancouver Island TV here in downtown Calgary, trying to steel man ostriches for humanity. Call them all, yo.
Okay. Make sure the mics are hot.
Can
Excellent.
you tell that this stream is continuing? Like, has it been
Yeah,
hacked?
see, if it's moving,
Okay.
then that
right.
means that
Okay.
we're live.
Okay. So now I'm trying to steel man it.
Yeah, make sure you stay in the frame now so you can
Okay.
see yourself. There you go.
Okay. Kill them all, let God sort them out.
That's not a very good steal.
Well,
man.
stamp it out. We must follow the government experts. We have to kill all the birdies, all the ravens, all the ducks, all the loons, all the sparrows, all the swallows, all the hummingbirds, all the seagulls, all the owls, because H5N1.
But the wild birds aren't in crowded, they're free to go wherever they want, and then they die off somewhere alone, as opposed to infecting other birds
The
in close
wild
proximity.
birds are infecting the farm birds, and the farm birds are infecting the cats, and the cats are infecting the
At what
people.
rate, though? At what rate are the wild birds infecting?
The University of Maryland has said that H5N1 is killing 90% of all cats. Bird flu. Yeah, so you should be scared, right? Why aren't you shaking? You should be panicking.
Who
Do you
said?
have cats?
I got 2 cats.
See? And so then the loons, you have loons at your little lake, they could like drop their guano on your cats, they could get it, and then you could get it.
Right, but still, the probability of wild birds having it is lower than if there's a domestic bird that has the bird flu. It is far more likely to pass it on to the other birds. No, because it's in captivity, because it's in close proximity to the other birds, as opposed to a bird flying wild. It just has a lower probability of actually making it
Birds
contagious.
go everywhere, and you know what? Birds poo, and you know, so they're actually bombers. Like, picture it like Saddam's National Guard Air Force coming to get you in your little hamlet in Alberta. Every sparrow out there is trying to get you and your cats. That's why I have to kill all the wild birds.
I've never been pooped on by a bird. Have you been
Really?
pooped on by a bird?
Oh yeah, seagulls.
You're lucky.
The seagulls
That's
have
like
to
good
die.
luck, right?
Yeah.
They chose you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then too, it might fall on your car, and then your cat might touch it, and your cat gets it. And then the
Yeah,
cat
so
goes
this
into your
seems
house,
like-
and then now the cat's out to kill your
So
children.
now, okay, so you want to kill all the birds because you're suffering from paranoia, and
Because the CFIA says so.
right. And we didn't elect the CFIA
And you know
though,
what?
right? We didn't
You're-
elect the CFIA.
You're just not scared enough of H5N1. That's your problem.
Should I be?
Yes. University of Maryland says it's killing 90% of cats, and it's going to jump to humans.
What cats? Where did they find these cats?
I don't know. But
How do they
said-
know that?
I don't know. We asked the University of Maryland.
90% of all cats.
You can't question the science. Okay, just believe it and get scared.
So no one voted for the CFIA. Why should we?
They are our loving governmental organization. You just must obey and love them unquestioningly.
Okay.
Still
So you honestly think that killing all the birds is the best course of action for human health? Is that the reason why they should be stamped out completely?
Honestly, I still man the CFIA as being unquestionable, and they need to expand their stamp out
Oh
policy.
yeah, you got one right there. You're good.
They need to actually get to the root of the problem, which is the wild birds.
Okay, so but
So what's the point of stamping out flightless ostriches in remote BC?
right, so we
you
we
know?
need to kill all
Well,
birds.
We have to kill the ostriches anyway,
Okay,
of course,
so
because
but
they said so.
with the ostriches and the
Yeah.
stamp out policy, how do you know for certain that those tests that they did, the PCR tests on the dead birds, weren't false negatives? Or sorry, false positives. How do you know that they weren't just false
They
positives?
said that the birds tested positive. You can't question that. Judge Zinn made that
What
clear.
is the
Judge
rate-
Zinn, he said it's very clear. They
Okay, but-
have jurisdiction, and we can't question it.
What is the rate of false positives though?
Judge Zinn wouldn't even accept that as evidence, and that's not at
Did
that
they test
issue.
multiple times, or was it just
You're not
one test per bird?
Judge Zinn was quite clear. He says, like, we're not allowed to look at any other science other than what the CFIA has produced. Okay.
So
he wouldn't allow any updated scientific, and quite rightly so, because we must not question our experts, our governmental experts only. Okay, think of, are you a
Interesting.
Christian?
no.
Okay, well, into that God-shaped hole that you have in your soul, insert the CFIA and Mark Carney.
Oh,
Okay?
okay. So you're saying kill all the birds because the test is absolutely correct, and why? But like, why kill all the birds? Like, what does that accomplish?
Stamp out policy.
Stamp out.
Yeah, follow
So-
the policy.
If they buy more birds, if they buy more ostriches,
Well, actually, birds should be illegal. We should kill all the birds.
kill all the birds.
All the birds. All the
So-
sparrows.
Eating chicken is unethical because you're
Well, we're going to
allowing
kill all the
birds.
birds because to stamp it out, they all might have it.
Do you think that there's a conspiracy, though, that this stamp out policy is simply there to increase the cost of meat through making it, like, do you just think that maybe the farmers who have all their chickens killed kind of want them to be killed so that they can sell their meat for more?
Why are you questioning the policy?
Why?
You're not allowed to question the policy. You need to just rein yourself in. Bring it back. Where's your tinfoil hat? You know, like, serious.
So,
Why would you? Do you think everything's a
so the
conspiracy? Do you
CFIA
think the flowers are a conspiracy?
think that like the best course of action is to be as overcautious as possible. So these are like the type of people that have perfectly clean homes and they put hand sanitizer on and they still wear masks right now, and they walk around living in fear that they could die at any moment, and they are, what is it called when you constantly think you're getting sick?
Hypochondriac.
They're hypochondriacs. They probably steam clean everything every day, those hyper anal clean people. So we're allowing these people who are still wearing, the type of people that would still be wearing masks right now and hand washing constantly and OCD to dictate how people should be raising their own animals.
It's not for you to question. And in fact, what you should do is go and get a gallon of bleach and put it in a sprayer and spray down your cats and your children and yourself. And any birds, kill the birds.
We're having fun. Thanks, Ryan. Steel man.
Okay.
Man.
So I can do it. So have you done?
All right. Yes,
I think
I'm
I've done
good.
enough steel,
Okay.
man.
Okay. So anyway, so I'm in the middle here.
You're
So
on neutral.
I'm on neutral because I don't have enough information. I agree with Al that not having the information, not having transparency is a real problem. And this is happening again and again. As well, the other thing too, so historically I would have typically have said the government has scientists, the government is representative of the people. Like I would have been a bit more suspicious than that. I wouldn't be quite as Pollyannish, but I certainly, if the government like Health Canada or whomever, organized government departments came out and said that some kind of scientific research had found that vaccines were safe or vaccines were necessary to combat, a probable pandemic, I would have tended to accept it. So I would think, well, why would they be misleading people? And what is their, and this is the thing for me a little bit with the ostrich thing. It's like, what is their interest in killing birds that pose no threat to anyone? What is their interest? And we've got a little bit of an indication of this, which is they want to just be, perhaps just take a sledgehammer approach to the issue, and they don't really want to get into any of the gray areas or the nuance that maybe is necessary. The United Nations involvement is quite interesting, these organizations, because these organizations are not accountable to any citizens or anything, so they make declarations about things, and it's not 100% sure how they come to this understanding. So after listening to Hal, I don't know about this, these kinds of proteins that are, I have no idea about that at all, whether that's a thing.
Amyloid proteins, and if that's actually an issue. I don't know either.
Yeah. So that's a kind of a question mark. If that were the case, then I would definitely move and say, it makes it necessary to kill animals, because we have situations where animals should be killed, but it's kind of seems to me to be a bit overkill to be just killing a whole bunch of animals, because you're not really investigating the whole picture with respect to that. So I guess I started off with I was in the slightly disagree kind of mat, I guess, because I was thinking and it's kind of like the killing a whole bunch of birds. Like we really should find out whether there's a threat here before we kill a whole bunch of birds. Like that's my issue. And now, whether the people care about the birds who have this thing where they're injecting them with all sorts of things or not, that's not really, it doesn't make sense to kill birds if they're not posing a threat. And I'm not sure, it seems to me that hasn't really been demonstrated in this situation. But who knows? It's not very old. What do you think about that, Hal? That kind of reasoning?
Yeah, well, it boils down to, again, as in Kamloops, let's go for transparency, or let's get the excavators or the shovels, or let's allow independent scientists to look at this situation.
Yeah.
rather than put a blanket prohibition on independent analysis.
Yeah. And your view is, so the government scientists have examined this issue?
Apparently, the CFIA people in their lab somewhere, but they won't allow anyone to like.
They haven't released their information.
Yeah, it's like repeatability is one way to do science, and not all. So that's like a hard science where you can repeat the results.
Yeah.
Right, and then to do that as transparently as possible. So, well, then it boils. We need to go back to the question of, is H5N1 actually a problem? And I don't see that it is. They're the only person in British Columbia said to have contracted H5N1 actually came up to the farm and gave a statement in favor of the ostriches.
Yeah, it seems to me a little bit. It's possible that this is due to, as Kathy was mentioning, there's some other. This often happens with the hiding of information. Is there's some other issue involved, and you don't want to let the public know about it because it's like the lab. I've heard that the lab leak theory with respect to COVID
That was racist, clearly.
is it was a lab that this virus escaped from, not animals mutating the virus in a meat market of wild animals in China.
It was gain of function research that led to the creation of SARS-CoV-2.
So the government obviously does not want that information to become known, because that would mean that there are viruses escaping from labs, and we would be very worried about that situation.
And gain of function research should be stopped. You know, look at
What is gain of function research?
it is research to make infectious diseases, both bacterial and viral, more contagious and dangerous.
Oh, okay. For like some kind of biological weapon kind of process.
Yeah, bioweapon. And now there's the argument they use in favor of it is they say, oh, we got to get ahead of these things to see where they're going so we can come up with countermeasures. Well, that doesn't stand out very well in light of what we've seen.
Yeah. And it's as well, it's the whole rationale for it is a bit frightening, that you're trying to bring about more disease, bring about more virulent kinds of things because of some advantage that you're hoping to get. Anyway, I think we're kind of probably getting to the end of our discussion. Time for beer, hopefully.
Yes.
I'm hoping to have a beer.
G&T for the...
I might need a Caesar.
So,
Caesar! Oh, I would so be Caesar.
anyway, so I think this was an interesting exercise, I thought. We could just scrunch in. You can scrunch in. This is, just to mention again, my own interest in this. I think this process, and I realize it's a work in progress because sometimes you're not able to, you're not able to get the questions that you would like to ask. You can't think of how to get deeper, how to drill down more into these matters. But it's the process. That's the important thing. Is in universities, every issue that exists, universities shouldn't be afraid to take this approach and just follow the questioning wherever it goes. And what we're seeing is an attempt to stop these kinds of discussions from happening, and that is what is really destroying the academic character of our institutions. So I'm hoping that we can bring this method to all universities in Canada, encourage other professors and students to employ this method, because I think that is one of the answers to addressing this kind of very, very closed kind of and fearful, to be honest, fearful kind of environment that exists in academic institutions today.
Academic freedoms, and back to my crest here.
That's the
from
University of Alberta.
University of Alberta, and their motto translates to whatsoever is true. Now, University of Alberta, I'm here from BC to tell thee to get real.
Well, University of Alberta has been one of the better ones, so we can't criticize it too much, but certainly University of Lethbridge, their motto is let there be light.
What was your university's
Mount
motto?
Royal's motto is "You belong here."
They changed it though now,
Oh, did
right?
they?
It's been changed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I forget. I don't know what it is now, but they changed it.
Did you feel like you belonged as a professor?
I did not. I was told I didn't belong.
You were told to leave.
I was told to leave because Mary Mulholland maintains that saying that there are only two sexes is denies the existence of trans people and says that basically they are less than worthy of anything because you're saying that there's only two sexes. And Gabrielle Weaselhead, who used to be called Gabrielle Lindstrom, or that was her married name, she says that if you question Indigenous science, this is racist and discriminatory. But Indigenous science does not exist. That is science. There's science, and then there's not science. If you put an Indigenous adjective in front of science, it means it's not science anymore. So although Gabrielle Weaselhead might be upset by me saying that Indigenous science doesn't exist, that is the truth. And for professors to be pushed out of an institution because they're saying true things, that's completely unacceptable. So we're hoping that Mount Royal is going to change its position on these matters. But we're working on it. We don't know whether that's going to be successful, but we will push as hard as we can to get them to change their mindset. Anyway, I really appreciate everyone on the live stream. I hope that this has been captured so that in case the ostrich people decide to censor us, it'll be
Friendly fire's the worst, guys.
Yeah, come on. We've got to discuss these things.
And communication.
Yeah,
I can
exactly.
shothe the communication breakdown.
But
Lots of receipts.
I think that we had an interesting discussion, and I think the idea of culling the ostriches, there's a lot of questions about doing that. It wasn't like people are arguing a lot in favor of that. So we need to get more information, more transparency, but that includes for the ostrich people to allow for the public to discuss this freely and to stop censoring people who want to have a critical examination of the issue.
This is Hal Hewitt with Vancouver Island TV on location in Calgary. Over.
Excellent.
To this. Yeah, nice.
All right. Thanks so much. Thanks everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Ciao, Bella.